Alright guys, this video is me telling you guys what happens if certain teams win or lose, because this is important, because today is Conference Championship Saturday. There's a lot of great games that are very, very important. You have first, you have the Big 12 Championship, and then you have the SEC Championship, and then the All-American Championship, and then the Big 10 Championship games. And as you can see, I put the team logos, and I rank them in order from left to right. Georgia's number 1, Michigan's 2, Alabama 3, Cincinnati 4th, Oklahoma State's 5th, Notre Dame is 6th, and Ohio State is 7th. So, crazy things can happen. There could be chaos today. And if you are not a fan of any of those teams, you would want that to happen. You would want to see chaos if you're not a fan of any of these 7 teams. Okay? Now, 4 of these 7 teams will be in the college football playoff. And yes, Ohio State has a slight possibility of being in the playoff. Why? Well, I'll tell you why in a little bit. But I'm going to talk to you. If you haven't seen the other video, I did my predictions of the conference championship games. So if you want to see that video, watch that first. But if you already did, continue watching. Now, first, I'm going to go by my conference championship predictions. So, for the Big 12 championship, I pick Oklahoma State to win. And for the SEC championship game, I pick Georgia to win. In the All-American championship, I pick Cincinnati. And in the Big 10, I pick Michigan. So that means Oklahoma State should be in the college football playoff. Georgia's in it for sure. Cincinnati will be in it, and Michigan will be in it. So that is going to be the Final Four as of my conference championship predictions. So that means Georgia will be number 1, Michigan will be number 2, Cincinnati could be 3 or 4, and Oklahoma State could be 3 or 4, depending on how they win. Okay? So let's say Cincinnati's 3rd and Oklahoma State is 4th. So that means in the playoff, it's 1 against 4 and 2 against 3, which means Georgia will be playing against Oklahoma State, and Michigan will be playing against Cincinnati. Or it could be Georgia versus Cincinnati and Michigan versus Oklahoma State. Now, I did read this on Wikipedia that the number 1 team in the country gets to pick where what semifinal game they want to play at. So the 2 semifinal games this year will be the Orange Bowl in Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, and the other one is the Cotton Bowl in AT&T Stadium in Dallas. So I think Georgia is going to pick the Orange Bowl in Miami, mainly because it's closer. So Georgia versus Oklahoma State, or against Cincinnati, will be in the Orange Bowl, and Michigan versus Cincinnati or versus Oklahoma State will be in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. So that is my Final Four as of my conference championship predictions. But I'm going to go by all the possibilities. So, a lot of people, most people, want Georgia to win because they don't want to have two SEC teams in the Final Four. That's the main reason why most people want to see Georgia win, because they don't want to see two SEC teams. Remember a couple of years ago that happened, right? And last year, Notre Dame was in the ACC, and there was two ACC teams in it. So, who do I want to see? I want to see both Cincinnati and Ohio State. Can you imagine if we get that matchup? Cincinnati versus Ohio State. Just imagine if that happens. My big brother is an Ohio State fan, and he wants that to happen, and I kind of do too. But if it doesn't, that's fine. Now, Notre Dame is not in the ACC this year, and they're not in a conference championship game, and they have one loss, and that one loss is to Cincinnati at home. So there's no way that Notre Dame should be ahead of Cincinnati because they lost to that team at home. So, and a lot of people, they don't want to see Notre Dame in it because every time Notre Dame's in it, they get crushed. You know? So, I don't want to see Notre Dame in it. I really want to see Cincinnati and Oklahoma State in it. I do not want to see two SEC teams in it. And most people do not want that to happen either. So, okay, what happens if Oklahoma State loses? Well, if they lose, they will most likely be out of it because they will have two losses. Okay. So, what happens if they lose and all of the other teams win? Georgia, Michigan, and Cincinnati. Well, that means Notre Dame will be the fourth team in the finals, in the Final Four, if Oklahoma State loses and all the other teams win. Okay? So, Georgia would be playing Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl, and Michigan will be playing Cincinnati in the Cotton Bowl. So, that's if Oklahoma State loses and all the other teams win. Okay? What happens if Cincinnati loses? Well, they will most likely be out of it too. So if Cincinnati loses, and let's say Cincinnati loses and Georgia and Michigan win, that means, and Oklahoma State, that means that means Oklahoma State will be number 3 and Notre Dame will be number 4. All right. So what happens if Alabama wins? Well, if they win, they will probably be in the playoff. So we will have two SEC teams. The question is, if Georgia loses, will they go down to number 2 or number 3? Okay? I don't think it really matters whether if they go down to number 2 or number 3. Man, there's so many what happens if moments. What happens if Michigan loses and everyone else wins? Well, if Michigan loses, they're out of it. Which means if Michigan loses and Alabama also loses, Cincinnati might be number 2 or 3, and Oklahoma State will be in there, and Notre Dame. Now, if you're Notre Dame, if you are a Notre Dame fan, you want Georgia to win because you do not want to see 2 SEC teams in it. You want to have, you really want to see, Michigan, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma State lose, or at least 2 out of those 3. Okay. Now, what happens? How can Ohio State be in the playoff? Well, if you are an Ohio State fan, you need to have a lot of things happen. You have to have all these things to happen. And those are Georgia winning, Michigan losing, Cincinnati losing, and Oklahoma State losing. So if that happens, Georgia will be number 1. Notre Dame might be number 2. And I guess Ohio State might be either 3 or 4, depending. It all depends on how much a team wins by or how much a team loses by. Okay? So let's say Georgia loses by 4 points. They will still be in the playoff, right? But if Cincinnati if Michigan loses horrible to Iowa, they'll be out of it for sure. So anything can happen, guys. Anything can happen. But what happens if Alabama wins and everyone else loses? Will Alabama be number 1? The answer might be yes. They might be number 1 if they win and everyone else loses. So if that happens, Alabama will be number 1. Georgia will either be 2 or 3. And Notre Dame will probably be 3, and Ohio State might be number 4. Golly, I can't. It's so hard to remember all these things, So, but yeah, you know what? It's kind of weird that we're not seeing Clemson and Ohio State in their conference championship because we're so used to that for the past, 5 years at least or something like that. So, yeah. Again, what do I want to see? I want to see Cincinnati and Oklahoma State in it. What I don't want to see is Alabama and Notre Dame in it. So, Georgia is pretty much safe, but they are going to try their hardest at the SEC championship game because they do not want to have Alabama in the playoff, and they do not want to have a rematch with them in the national championship. That's why they're going to try their hardest. Okay? So, yes, they are safe no matter what because it said that they had like a 99% chance, but that doesn't mean they're not going to try. They will try their hardest. They want to win, So it's a must-win for Michigan, Alabama, Cincinnati, and Oklahoma State. It's not necessarily a must-win for Georgia, but it is for the 4 other teams. Again, Notre Dame is not in the ACC. I wish they were. If they were, they would be playing against Pittsburgh, I believe, right? And if they were to lose that game, they would be out of it. If they win that game, they will probably be in it, you know. Let's hope they get it right this year. You know how last year they kind of got it wrong? They kind of did. Let's hope they get it right this year. So. But hey, man. Can you imagine if we see Michigan, Cincinnati, and Ohio State in the Final Four with Georgia? We're seeing 3 new teams in it. You know, sometimes, you know, you don't want to see the same teams in it every year. You know, you're kind of sick of it. If you're not a fan of those teams, right? Anyway, that's basically it for this video. A lot of things can happen. But if you're an Ohio State fan, you gotta have, you know, 3 teams losing, you know. And that's not easy, so yeah. Well, the game that I'm looking forward to the most is the All-American Championship, the one with Cincinnati in it, because if they win, they should be in it. Now, here's the problem. Cincinnati can actually be out of it even if they win their conference championship. I almost forgot to mention this. And the reason why is because if Michigan, Alabama, and Oklahoma State win their conference championship, Cincinnati will probably go down to number 5. That's probably going to happen. So if you're Cincinnati, you want Georgia to win. Period. At least, you know? Man, oh man. This is probably the best conference championship day I've ever seen for this sport. Seriously, let's be honest. So many things can happen, you know? And, yeah. Alright, I don't want to make this video too long. Let me know in the comments, who do you want to see in it? What 4 teams do you want to see in it? And let me know if you want to tell me your conference championship predictions, you can do that. And Sunday, tomorrow, is also a big day because they will reveal the bowl games, mainly the big ones, the New Year's Six. And I'm actually going to do a video later tonight of the Dream Bowl matchups, my predictions of what teams will go to what bowl game. And I actually did that 2 years ago in 2019, and I did an okay job. Some of them I got it right. Some of them, you know, I got a certain team in the bowl game, but you know, it's actually kind of fun. So look forward to seeing that. And that's it. Thank you for watching this video. And this is gonna be a big day, man. It's gonna be a huge day. Again, to recap, if you are a Michigan fan, you have to win. Alabama fan, must win. Same for Cincinnati and Oklahoma State. If you are a Notre Dame fan, you gotta have at least 2 teams losing. So say Michigan and Oklahoma State loses, then they're probably going to be in it. All right. Ohio State, you're probably going to need 3 teams losing. So let's say Michigan, Alabama, and Cincinnati lose. Okay. Then they'll probably be in it. So, yeah. And then we'll find out. We will find out. This is gonna be a really exciting day. So, I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say. I don't think so. So, all right. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll do another video tonight of my dream bowl game predictions of what certain teams will go to certain bowl games, and I'm not gonna do all 40. Okay, that will be too much. I'm gonna do as many as I can. So that video's gonna be a long one because the one I did 2 years ago was like an hour video. Anyway, all right, guys, thanks for watching, and let the conference championship games begin.